Put yourself in the place of the Christians in Thessalonica. Paul's preaching made sense and you accepted it. You wanted to know so much more, but Paul left quickly. You and your fellow believers were visited by Timothy, and your group received a letter that reassured you about the importance of Jesus' resurrection and gave you hope of your own. Jesus is coming again. But you and others are confused. Has the day of the Lord already come and you missed it? No, you are confident that the second coming of Christ will occur, but when? And what should you do until it happens? 2 Thessalonians was written in response to such concerns. Professor Victor Paul Furnish enlarges our understanding of the letter and reminds us of the important balance Christians must maintain between expectation and responsibility.
At first glance, 2 Thessalonians might seem to be little more than a revised version of 1 Thessalonians. But in spite of their similarities, these letters were written for rather different reasons. The purpose of 1 Thessalonians had been to kindle hope among the readers. That letter had offered assurances that Christians who die before Christ's return will not be left out. At the Lord's coming, they will be resurrected, even as Christ Himself was resurrected. So the main message of 1 Thessalonians was to be hopeful. Now in 2 Thessalonians, which was written later, the hope of Christ's return was by no means given up. But the purpose of this letter is to correct the mistaken idea apparently held by some of its readers that the day of the Lord's return was already at hand. So the main message of 2 Thessalonians is to be patient. This is clearest at the beginning of chapter 2. As to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to Him, we beg you, brothers and sisters, not to be quickly shaken in mind or alarmed to the effect that the day of the Lord is already here. Let no one deceive you. Following this appeal, the letter goes on to say that a number of things have to happen before Christ returns. The description of these was probably just about as confusing to the original readers as it is to us. However, the important point is not what exactly is going to happen before the Lord returns or when exactly He will return. This letter is saying, don't expect Christ to return anytime soon. Be patient. Go on about your business of being a Christian right here and now. We know that the very first Christians believed Jesus was going to return almost any day. As time went by, and that did not happen, those earliest believers had to reconsider and revise their expectations. They didn't give up their commitment to the gospel or their hope, but they did rethink their understanding of the gospel, and they did reflect on the meaning of their hope. In these, as in other respects, they set a good example for all of us. To be thoughtful about our faith, to be open to deeper understandings of what it's all about, and to reflect on the meaning of hope for our present life. This is what we see in 2 Thessalonians. We see the church asking itself if the wait is going to be longer than we first supposed. What happens in the meantime? In its first years, the church could be pretty laid back about its life in the world. If God's reign is at hand, why worry about this world? But by the time 2 Thessalonians was written, Christians were realizing they had to worry about this world. One worry was about the hostility Christians often meet in non-Christian societies. This worry is reflected right at the beginning of our letter in a reference to all the persecutions and afflictions the readers were having to endure. Christians were also having to worry about problems within the church itself. In the process of rethinking their faith and hope, different understandings began to emerge among them. How could they distinguish appropriate understandings of the gospel from dangerous misunderstandings of it? To meet this need, the church began to collect and organize its traditions. In 2 Thessalonians, this is reflected in the appeal to stand firm and hold fast to the traditions that you were taught by us. 2 Thessalonians also reflects a worry about those who did not believe or behave in ways most Christians found acceptable. Near the end of the letter is a reference to church members who may not be willing to obey the instructions in this letter. The readers are advised not to treat them as enemies, but to warn them as brothers and sisters in Christ. They're also advised to stay away from them in order to shame them. Well, this advice seems rather harsh, and maybe in the original situation there was reason to be. But we should not forget Paul's usual counsel about such situations, as found, for example, in his letter to the Galatians. My friends, he says, if anyone is detected in a transgression, you who have received the Spirit should restore that person in a spirit of gentleness. The most fundamental worry reflected in 2 Thessalonians is clear from the appeal, do not be weary in doing what is right. Some Christians were so preoccupied with thoughts about the Lord's return that they were living in idleness, mere busybodies, not doing any work. They had turned their faith into a waiting game and their hope into a wishing game. They had forgotten that the gospel involves a task as well as a promise to serve God and others beginning now and for however long we are given to live in this world. The appeal not to grow weary in doing what is right reminds us that faith and hope are not really Christian unless they make a difference in our daily lives. So the original readers of 2 Thessalonians were being asked to wait for the Lord with patience and in the meantime to do the will of God. 20 centuries later, we are still living in that meantime and still waiting. But from a Christian standpoint, waiting has a very special character. Years ago in a train station, 2 signs caught my attention. The larger one said, waiting room, and right below it there was a slightly smaller one that said, no loitering. There's a difference, isn't there, between waiting and loitering. When we're loitering, we're just killing time, using it up. Loiterers are just hanging out with no special purpose or sense of responsibility. They experience time as a burden. But when we're waiting in hope, we experience time as a gift. We are expectant, ready, responsive. Our waiting is purposeful, and that gives us a sense of responsibility for where we are right now. This is the message of 2 Thessalonians. The gospel calls us to wait, but not to loiter. Faith does not mean killing time until Christ returns. Faith means employing the present time, however long or short, to do the will of God.